back to another edition of Coach's Corner brought to you by Fats Cafe. I'm your host, Katelyn Grisillo, and joining us today from the cross-country team is Coach Kara. Thank you for joining us today, Coach.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, Coach, can you talk to us a little bit about your team's performance at North Georgia?
Certainly. So we went to North Georgia on Saturday to run at the pre-conference course. So we ran a 6 kilometer. It was our first 6 kilometer race of the season. And for some of my girls, it was their first 6 kilometer race ever. And for a few people, it was a little bit of an adjustment, just a little bit farther than a 5K is. And so their times were a little bit slower. But it was good that we had so many other girls to run against. When you have such a big field, there were like 25 women's teams there.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of runners on the start line, a lot of excitement, a lot of people cheering, and also people to run with throughout the race. When we were at our season opener, they were pretty spaced out. So at some point, some of the runners might have been alone fairly throughout the race without someone else to push them. But when you have such a big field, you have a lot more runners to run with. So I think they did well, but we have a lot of work to do before we come back there for conference.
Right. Aside from the increase in distance, did you think they adjusted to the course well itself with the terrain and just being more familiar with it for conference tournament time potentially?
I think so. It was definitely flatter than the season opener. So their 5K times, which we could have calculated or kind of estimated based on the mile splits that we got, were faster than the previous race, so that was excellent. And also this was just a good footing course, I guess is the best way to say that. It was all grass. They didn't have to cross the pavement as before, and it was very scenic, some woods and a pond and all kinds of elements like that really made it a lot more interesting.
A little more enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. And there were a lot of spectators. That always helps out too with keeping your morale up and stuff like that.
Right. Now, Bethany Fordham, can you talk to us a little bit about her 2 performances in the last 2 meets?
Absolutely. So in both races, she was our first runner on the team, and both races were very well run. She started out, going out a little fast, and I think that's something that we're going to have to kind of work with a little bit, is that she goes out a little bit fast and maybe can't stay with some of those front runners that she goes out with. That happened in the first race as well, where they passed her about the 1.5 mile mark. And I did see her drop back a little bit in the field after the first mile and the 2 mile, but she was able to hold a pretty consistent pace. But her first mile was a little bit fast at 6:20, and then she dropped back to like a 7-something for the next mile and stuff like that. So great performance, but I think we got to really work on maybe holding back just a little bit on that first mile so that she's conserving a little energy for later in the race.
Right. Now, I've heard she has the potential to possibly break some school records. Is that true?
I think so. I think that she, as starting out as just a freshman and having so much potential ahead of her, that with the right training and her drive that she can really do that. She said, her 5K time at this race was basically a personal best for her. It was a 21 minute, which is not on exact pace to beat the school record, which is about 19:30 or so. But I think that she has the ability of doing it, and I think if she can hold on to a 6:20 mile, she can very well be very close to it or break it.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
What would you say was the best part of the meet, in your opinion, for your team?
The best part of the meet? I would say the start of the race is just so enthusiastic, and there's so much adrenaline at that start line that is really one of the best parts of the race. But personally, I think the finish of the race is the most rewarding, because I just could really see it in all of their faces, how hard they wanted it and how they were kicking it in, trying to pass one more person right before they crossed the finish line, trying to get one more point, deducted from our score, and just trying to get the very best time that they could. So those were 2 of the most exciting parts for me.
Good. Good. Now, what would you say will be the focus this week, seeing that y'all are off until next Friday when we host the USC Aiken Invitational?
Yeah, absolutely. So since this is an off week, we're trying to work a little bit harder and still recovering a little bit from Saturday. So this morning's run was just a nice, easy recovery run, and this afternoon we went and did a long, easy run out in Hitchcock Woods just to kind of get back into it and get those legs feeling fresh again. I think some of them were still a little bit sore, tired from Saturday. So we're going to hit it again hard tomorrow, and we'll be doing some hills and some speed workouts this week, and also just some other recovery runs, just trying to build up the mileage. We haven't gotten to our peak mileage yet for this season, but we're getting to a point where in a couple more weeks we'll start going back down with the amount of mileage and intensity, so we'll back down a little bit pretty soon.
What is the peak mileage for your team's practice?
It depends. We probably won't do more than 5 to 6 miles at a time, since we're just training for a 5K and 6K. But some of the girls are able to do a little bit longer than others, and we have one who's actually training for a marathon, so she does a little bit more distance than some of the other ones do, and some of them are struggling with a couple of overuse injuries right now, so it kind of varies.
That's interesting. So is the routine for an off week different than your normal practice plan when you have a meet upcoming?
It's a little bit different. We're able to put a little more intensity in throughout the week than when we have a meet. When we have a meet, we'll might hit it hard for Monday through Wednesday, and then by Thursday kind of back down a little bit. But when we don't have a meet, we can work hard, Monday through Friday, and then kind of cross-train on the weekend. And we definitely will be adding a little bit to our speed workout, doing a little more distance since we don't have a race this weekend. And we're going to be adding a little bit more since we're getting ready for some more 6Ks later in the season. So yeah, just a little tweak, but we'll keep kind of a similar format. We usually do our speed workouts on a specific day, and we kind of do mile repeats on a certain day and stuff like that. So.
That sounds very fun.
Yeah, you could call it fun.
Okay, so your team has run a 5K and a 6K so far. Which one will y'all be running for the home meet?
We'll run a 5K.
Okay.
And the men will be running an 8K that come to the race. Since we don't have a men's team, that doesn't really affect us. But anyway, that is what we'll be doing for the home meet. And hopefully we'll actually see some fast times on our home course since they're so familiar with it.
Right.
And then we'll keep up the training to get ready for a 6K at conference in a couple weeks, but our next 2 races will be 5Ks.
Is there a difference to training for a 5K versus a 6K?
It's really not very different. We started out at a little bit lower speed workout where we were only doing a speed workout that added up to about 2 miles, whereas when we are getting up ready for the 6K, we're doing 3 and 4 miles worth of speed workouts to get ready for that, because a 6K is just under 4 miles.
Okay, so being in your 5th year as a head coach, what has been the biggest hurdle, no pun intended for the track stars out there, what has been the biggest hurdle you have faced so far?
Well, there have been several. One is just recruiting has always been a little bit of a struggle. I'll contact lots of student athletes, but they may choose other schools, or they may decide they're not going to pursue collegiate running in college. And some of the runners that we've gotten have actually not been cross-country runners at all. They've been track athletes, or they've just decided to come to running from another sport. So we certainly see that as well, and I would like to see some more recruits that are serious about running and are really talented. But that's been a struggle of mine. I just feel like I recruit and can't always line up enough girls. We do have 8 this year, and I'm very thankful that we have such a good group, but that has been a struggle before.
Is there an ideal number you'd like for your cross-country team?
I've always been shooting to have 12, since we can actually run up to 12 runners at our conference championship.
Okay.
We can only run 7 at regionals, but we can run 12, which means that throughout the season they can kind of be training with each other and pushing each other and trying to beat each other for
Just
those
more opportunity
top,
overall, kind of. Definitely.
And you can better able to handle when someone has an injury, that you kind of have depth to your team.
Right. Okay, on a positive note, what would you say has been the biggest reward thus far?
It's certainly been all the athletes that I've seen leave our program and find jobs or pursue higher education. Whenever the girls graduate from the program and ask me to write letters of recommendation or read their resumes, I'm just really proud that they're able to come run and become so much more mature, and also to go out and follow their dreams. That's just really rewarding for me.
Good, well said.
Thanks.
And finally, what would you say, what does it mean to you to be a pacer in your eyes?
Well, I don't know if you knew this, but I graduated with my Master's of Clinical Psychology from USC Aiken.
Oh,
so
wow.
I've considered myself a pacer ever since
Yeah.
I've been here. But, a pacer is a type of race horse, and definitely that fits right
Very
along
fitting.
with cross country, is that we're racing. You got to get a good start, and you got to keep up the pace, and you got to have a good finish, and all those things that go along with, a racehorse. So
Right.
to me, that's what a pacer means. And it also is, them doing well in the classroom and taking care of themselves and eating right and being a steadfast member of the team.
Good. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today, Coach.
Thank you for having me.
And we wish you the best of luck in preparation for next Friday.
Thank you.
That wraps up another edition of Coach's Corner, brought to you by Fats Cafe. I'm your host, Katelyn Grisillo. Thank you for watching.